Hello, Internet. It is Dee. So after that last very overly perhaps long-winded video, I wanted to hopefully do something that would cut that down just a little bit. But I also really enjoy doing like the different looks on my different eyes and trying to create as many looks as possible. So today I wanted to do that for a palette that I already own, and one that I think I kind of briefly mentioned as sort of the, I don't know, a higher level palette perhaps, and that is the Makeup Revolution, the Emily Edit, the Wants palette. It's kind of a mouthful. We're just gonna call it the Wants palette. That's easier to say, right? Yeah. This palette has been out for quite a few months now, kind of. Like, I think there was an initial release, I want to say in like late August of last year. But during the release, that there was apparently some tea about this palette, which, I don't know, is kind of some of the lamest, most boring tea in my opinion, because the whole tea, as far as I can see, just came down to some people didn't 100% love it. How dare they? Which apparently is a danger when YouTubers review palettes collabed in part by other YouTubers. This palette in particular was a team up between Makeup Revolution and Emily Noel, a YouTuber that's like, I think she's been making videos for like over a decade on here, like one of the original like makeup YouTubers. I only actually found her like a year or so ago-ish, maybe less than that, just from reading other people's comments on having enough of the drama that was the makeup community in 2018 and being like, okay, who's like not those people? You know, the ones with all the drama. And that's how I found her. So when I saw that she was coming out with a makeup collaboration, I thought, hey, cool, I want to go pick that up. Support YouTuber products. I like it. So even though Emily's own makeup style is pretty vastly different from my own, you know, she's a lot more of just the classic makeup look, where I am a little different, alternative, something odd. I mostly really wanted to pick up this palette, not only just to support her because, hey, support YouTubers and their products, am I right? But just because this color scheme is just totally unlike anything that I've seen put out. You know, this is different. I haven't seen palettes like this before. And, you know, in her video where she announced this palette, she went over each of the colors and why she chose them and why she liked them and the meaning behind each of their names even. Oh my goodness. And I don't know, that's just incredibly wholesome and heartwarming, and I love it. So I picked it up. Now, this palette was not available for a little while, but I have checked and it's back up most places, and it kind of even says new again. So if you do like this, you can buy it. It is MSRP $20, which is like, to me, a super good value for a palette this size. Like, these are some pretty big pans, I think. And I also do like that she did choose to collab with a brand that is at a more like accessible kind of drugstore price range. I don't think Makeup Revolution is usually found in most drugstores, at least around here, but you can find it at Ulta or obviously just online. So without further ado, let's go on to the 4 different looks I made with this palette. This time I tried to speed it up a little and not try to talk and do my makeup at the same time, so I'm going to go to a voiceover because it's probably going to be much less wordy, because when you get me in front of the camera, I seem to get very wordy for some reason. So yeah, on to that. For this first look, I wanted to do something pretty simple and light, so I stuck with all of the lighter end of the palette. I'm starting with the shade The Cream, which is pretty much just a matte white, just to sort of set my eye and make it easier to blend on. Then I used the color Midwest as my crease shade and just kind of got it everywhere, not trying to keep it particularly precise or nice, just add a general shadow effect. Then I used the shade Cupcake, which is a very light shiny pink, all over the lid area. And then the shade Oh Heavens, a light neutral highlight shade on my finger, right in the center, just to brighten that up a little bit, and right under my brow bone. I then also took it and ran it underneath my eye to brighten up my under eye area a little bit. and then took Midwest on a very small angled brush and took it just a little bit underneath my eye to create this eye enlarging effect that I think looks kind of cute. I then smoothed everything out, and I decided I wanted to make the shiny part a little bit brighter, so I sprayed my angled brush with a little bit of setting spray just so I could try to get the color to stick a little bit better and make it stand out a bit more. I then curled my lashes and put on a simple coat of mascara, nothing fancy. And that finishes the eye look for this side. I'll be coming back to this side to do the rest of the face, but for now, let's move on to the second eye. For the second look, I felt really inspired by the fourth column of the eyeshadows on the palette, and I wanted to do something involving shades along those lines. So starting with the shade Grateful, which is a shiny pastel green, I put that all up under my brow bone. I then followed it with Belle Violet, a shiny lilac shade, and I just put that directly on my finger and put that all over my lid, leaving a space in between in my crease to fill in with the next shade, which is Family, a dark purple matte shade. I took an angle brush and put that all into the crease and took it a little bit down onto the lid and then blended that out. I wanted to make sure you could see it when my eyes were fully open, so I went and added it a little bit higher up as well. I then sprayed my small angled brush again so I could put the shade Grateful all over my lower lid. And then went with the shade Love Tons just on the outer half of the eye, a little bit into the crease and on the lid, just to warm up that area and add another little splash of color. I thought a look this colorful needed some extra colorful accessorizing to go with it, so I paired the look with a bright purple eyeliner, as well as lined my waterline with a purple pencil. I then took the shade Family and very lightly lined the outside of my lower lid with it, and took a little bit more of the shade Grateful just to pop in the inner corner of my eye. And then, same routine as before, curled my lashes, put on a coat of mascara, and that is how the second eye turned out. Now I'm going to be finishing off my face on both sides. For the first side, I wanted to keep it pretty light and fresh, so I used my lightest contour shade. I then used the shade Laugh Cry as my blush, because honestly I think this shade makes a really pretty blush, at least for these warm toned looks. I then chose a kind of neutral champagne-y highlighter to go with it that creates a very natural looking wet sheen effect that's not too glittery. And for the lips, I just went with a semi-sheer peachy lip gloss. I actually ended up liking this look a lot more than I thought I would initially, because I tend to like the more darker dramatic looks, but I thought I looked just so fresh and youthful with these colors that I realized I might need to try more looks like this. To finish off the look on side 2, I mixed my light and medium contour, mostly because I'm running out of light and I feel like I need to dip into some other colors to make this last longer. I wanted a really bright pink blush, so I went with this one from Wet n Wild. It's quite dark and pigmented for my skin tone, so I just use a little tiny bit at a time. I went with a cool pinky gold duochrome highlighter for this side to create a cool tone but yet not too cold look on this side. For lips, I went with a cool tone pinky purple lip gloss. There were definitely some shades I could have picked that would have matched this that would have been a lot darker, but I wanted to keep this look still fairly on the lighter side. Of these two looks, the first one really surprised me because I'm not usually a warm-toned, peachy kind of person, but it went surprisingly well with my skin tone, and it just turned out so light and fresh and cute and youthful looking that I gotta admit, I think I'm a fan. The second side is definitely more my normal style. I love cool tones and cool shades, and I love mixing lots of colors together. So this side definitely felt the most just like, oh yeah, that's Dee, alright, that's how she does things. Alright, back to a clean slate for looks 3 and 4. I've already primed my eyes with some concealer, so if my eyes look really unnaturally white, that's why. I'm starting with the shade Midwest to use as my general crease shade and transition color. And then going in with Apartment, a warm brown matte. I'm keeping that in the crease and just taking it a little bit lower than I took the first shade, and bringing it onto the lid a little bit and blending it all out. Now I'm going into the shade Side Hustle, which is kind of a shimmery green gold, and taking that on my finger and putting that on the inner half of my eyelid. Then I'm going in with the shade Corduroy and putting that on the outer half of my eyelid and up into the crease a little bit. Then I'm taking Top Story, a shimmery gold shade, spraying my angled brush, and using that as a liner on my lower eyelid. As well as putting it on the center of my eyelid. Then I'm using the shade Grateful as my inner corner highlight, and Oh My Heavens as my brow bone highlight. Keeping with the dark green theme, I chose this dark green liquid eyeliner from Wet n Wild and did a thin cat eye with it. It takes a bit to dry. And since they came in a set together, I took this gold eyeliner from Wet n Wild and used it to create a few little extra highlight points of interest, not sure what you call it, in the look, and then added a line of gold glitter right above my crease. This particular stuff isn't technically eye safe, but I found I can use it on the upper part of my eyelid as long as I'm not using it right along my eye like you would an eyeliner. As is usual, I then curled my lashes, put on some basic black mascara, and there you have it. For look 4, we're going to start with the shade Prayer as our basic transition shade, as I want this look to be more on the pink side than the orange side. Then I'm taking Love Tons, using that as my crease shade, and blending it right over the top of Prayer. This shade in particular did take a little extra blending, I felt, but overall, I think the look still turned out fine. I'm then taking some of Prayer and running it along my lower eyelid, and on a thinner brush, taking Love Tons and running that right along the edge as an eyeliner. Then I took the shade Heartbeat on my fingertip and put that on the outer half of my eye, followed by Pizzazz, a little bit more of a purpley shade right in the middle. I tried a few different strategies to see which made the shades look the shiniest, but in the end I think just using a finger works best. I then used Eve Rose on my pinky finger to get it right in the inner corner and blended it out into the other shades. I then followed the same pattern that I did on my upper eyelid onto my lower eyelid with a small angled brush so that it would be shimmery both on top and bottom. I lined my waterline with a basic nude eyeliner pencil, and then worked on blending any extra bits out that I thought needed it. Curl eyelashes, put on mascara, yada yada, and there's the fourth look done. I went ahead and contoured off camera because it's just the same thing you saw before, but to finish off the green and gold side, I used this really warm tone, almost orangey blush, which looks very strange in the palette to think of it on my face, but it actually looks really nice once it's there as long as it matches the rest of the colors. I went with a very light gold highlighter for the look, just to keep everything kind of warm toned and tied together, but not to look like I actually just slapped a bunch of gold glitter on my face either. For my lips, I went with a dark brown orange shade. And then topped that with a glittery, warm gold lip gloss. To finish the fourth look, I used the same very pink Wet n Wild blush you saw earlier, put it on maybe a little bit heavier for this look, and then finished with a warm pink highlighter. It doesn't look very pink in the pan, but trust me, it really reflects pink. For lips, I wanted to keep things extremely pink, so I went with the shade Persuasion from ColourPop. I decided I wanted to warm the shade up just a little bit to match with the eyes better, so I put this lip gloss on top, which is a very similar shade, just slightly more warm toned. So, here's the finished look for both sides. Once again, the left side really surprised me. These aren't colors I normally wear, but they turned out looking really good. It's kind of a shame that I really don't have any of these colors in my wardrobe, because I'd like to wear this look again. The pink side is pretty simple when it comes down to it, but I still think it turned out pretty nice. I mean, honestly, it's hard to just go wrong with pink, with more pink, and a little bit more pink on top of pink. And there you have it. Four different looks using the Wants palette. So, what do I think of this palette? Was the tea right? Oh, yes and no. I mean, to me, it's very silly to get worked up over something so minor as a eyeshadow palette. And, you know, that's no knock to eyeshadow palettes. I love them, but, like, let's be real. There's more pressing things to be upset over. A lot more pressing things. Don't make me get out the soapbox. I have a lot of feelings about things in the world. Now, me personally, I really haven't tried Makeup Revolution products really at all before this palette, so I have no history with their eyeshadows. I have no idea if this is standard for their formula or different for their formula or high tier or low tier or mid tier for anything they produce. I don't know. This was kind of my introduction to them. Looking at it, this is going to be a product that is appealing to makeup lovers who kind of already know a bit of what to do with eyeshadow, but also people that don't necessarily want to always shell out those big bucks for the palettes out there. Because let's be real, if I'm gonna spend $40, $50, $60 on a single eyeshadow palette, that thing better blend itself. It better be perfect, it better do everything I want from it and more, because holy shit, that's expensive. Something along this price line, it's not the cheapest, but it's also still in that more accessible, affordable tier. So am I expecting perfection? No. I'm expecting workable and enough that it's not like just frustratingly annoying though either. And overall, I'd say it passes that bar. For the most part, the formulas worked fine, and I didn't have a lot of issues with fallout really, except for corduroy. This one shade feels, just to even put your finger in it, completely different from everything else on the palette. And that kind of weirded me out and made me a little hesitant, just because corduroy was like one of the shades I was most excited for when I first saw this palette, because dang, this beautiful dark forest green, I have like nothing like that in my collection. I wanted it so badly. And yeah, it's a funky one. It takes a little bit more work. And, you know, but at the same time, like, the pigment's there, and that's what I most care about. What would disappoint me the most is that if I dipped into that and it just, like, was this, like, muddy gray, barely there thing. I mean, man, like, if that were the case, I'd be mad. I'd be pissed. But no, even though it's a little odd, it's workable. I'm willing to forgive it. And it's like, it's the only one in this whole palette even remotely like that. I have no idea. I guess there must just be something about the pigment of that one shade that makes it perform totally differently than the others. Otherwise, I think the only other shade I tried that I was kind of disappointed in was Cheer. Looking at it in the pan and how it went on, it seemed like it looked a lot more warm toned on my skin than it looked in the pan. Even though it is kind of warm toned there already, it just, I don't know, it got less pinky, more orangey, and I felt like the pigment wasn't as strong as I would have wanted it to be either. And I suppose the other one might be Heartbeat. I don't know, this one was just, kind of a similar thing. If it went on a lot more warm toned than it looked to me at first. And it's a more sticky shimmer formula in that you can kind of, I don't know if you can even quite see it on the camera, but it sticks to itself a little bit more, and therefore it's kind of harder to get out of the pan a little bit. Once it actually applies to something, it looks fine, but it just like wasn't the color I was thinking it would be. So yeah, these two here, a little funky. This one here, love the color, just an odd feel to it. But yeah, you know, like these three right here out of like how many? And even then, they're not terrible. They're just the ones that I was a little bit more, about. Okay, so what are the pros and cons? Let's see, we'll put the pros over here. So, pros. I think it's a good value for your dollar monies. You're getting quite a lot of shades and some good pan sizes for only $20, which I think is pretty reasonable for a palette this large. You got this really unique color scheme that I just haven't seen in like any other palette out on the market right now at all. So if you're just kind of into something unique, that's part of why I picked it up. The palette itself is pretty sturdy and heavy feeling, and I love that they printed the names of each of the shades on here, because boy do I hate it when I get those little flimsy plastic inserts with the names of colors on it. I hate it. Why do people do that? It's awful. Just do this. This is the correct way to put the names of things on here. Do this. And for the cons, we'll put those over here. Well, it's large, which in some ways can be a pro, but it can also be a con, because even though it can close down and be pretty thin, it's a large palette. It takes up some space. It's kind of a big chonker. And so if you're limited on space, you might want to keep that in mind. One of the complaints I did hear in some early reviews about this product was that some people had some trouble blending the matte shades, and yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the shade. I bet I can kind of see where that's coming from. It didn't blend as easily as some other eyeshadow palettes I've tried, but I don't think it was impossible to blend either. It just took a little bit more blending. That might be a bigger problem for some people than others. It wasn't to a point that it really started to frustrate me too badly, so I will probably keep using it. Some of the formulas are a little funky. I really only had issue with these three right here. Otherwise, all the other shades I tried, I thought they performed just fine. The shimmer shades are a little bit lacking to me, but at the same time, I don't think they're meant to be like wham bam ultimate shiny statement glitter shades. I think they are meant to be more subtle, so that's really more of like a con just for my own personal style than like the palette's fault, if that makes sense. I like my glitter. I like my very high impact shiny things. What can I say? It's just my thing. So yep, there's my short little review and 4 different looks with the palette to give you ideas, except secretly, it was 5 looks all along, because this look is made with the palette too. It was just such a simple look, I didn't really think I needed to go over it in much detail. It's, you know, it's a black smoky eye. It's using only 2 colors out of the palette, Prayer and Dark and Early, and that's it. It's a smoky eye. There you go. 5 looks! Wow! Of all the shades in the palette, of which there are 24, these are the shades that I personally liked the best, and they are Love Tons, just a really nice magenta-y pink matte, Grateful, that really beautiful shiny like pastel spring green, also just a really unique color I don't see much of, Belle Violet. It's, you know, it's a shiny pastel purple. I love pastels, I love purple, I love this shade. Family, which is a dark matte purple. It goes really well with those following shades over here, and it's dark and it's pretty, and I love purple. Top Story, while it wasn't the shiniest of gold eyeshadows I've tried, it's a really unique color of gold. It's darker and warmer than any other gold eyeshadow I have, and so that just made it stand out to me, be like, huh, I like that, that's different. And finally, Corduroy. Yeah, even though I complained about it because its formula's kind of weird, I just can't deny I love that color. It's beautiful. It goes with that gold so well, and I love it. Well, there you go. I hope you found that informative. You know how the algorithm in social media is these days. I need your clicks. I want your clicks. You gotta give me those clicks. I want them. Anyway, that was strange. And also tell me in the comments below which of the 4 looks you liked the best. I have my personal favorite, but I'm gonna keep it a secret for now because I don't want to influence the vote. And so, I will see you in the next video. Bye!